Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today we're diving into a question that's been bugging philosophers for, well, centuries, and now it's got neuroscientists and AI experts scratching their heads too. Do we really, truly have free will? I mean, think about it for a second. You just chose to click play on this. It felt like your choice, didn't it? But what if that feeling of being in the driver's seat, that sense that you're the one calling the shots, what if it's all just a really convincing illusion? To really get to the bottom of this, we have to look inside our own heads. Because back in the 1980s, a scientific discovery started to pull apart everything we thought we knew about how we make decisions. Okay, so check this out. A neurobiologist named Benjamin Libet ran this now legendary experiment. He basically told people, flex your wrist whenever you feel like it and just tell me the exact moment you decided to do it. Now the timeline here is what's so wild. The brain started showing activity, what they call a readiness potential, a full 550 milliseconds before the wrist actually moved. But people only felt like they'd made the decision about 200 milliseconds before that. That's a gap, a chunk of time where your brain is already gearing up to act before you are even aware you've decided to. And if you think that's wild, it gets even more mind-bending. More recent studies, this time using fancy fMRI scans, found they could predict which of two buttons a person was going to press, up to 10 seconds before the person themselves was aware of making a choice. 10 seconds, that's an eternity in brain time. It's like the decision was already there, just waiting in the wings of your brain. And this is where guys like philosopher and neuroscientist Sam Harris step in. He basically says, look, if someone with a brain scanner can know what you're going to do before you even do, how can you really say you're the one in charge? It's a tough question. And okay, this isn't just some weird thing happening in a lab anymore. This same kind of predictive logic is now the engine that runs our entire digital world. The line between what you want and what you're told you want is getting fuzzier every single day. Just think about it for a second. Every single video you watch, every song you listen to, every single thing you browse, you're feeding data into these massive algorithms. And these systems, well, they're learning your patterns. And they're subtly nudging you toward choices that you feel are totally your own. They're making your free choices predictable. For a perfect real-world example, look no further than this. Amazon literally patented a system for what they call anticipatory shipping. They crunch all your data to predict what you're about to buy, and they start shipping it to a warehouse near you before you even hit the buy button. And guess what? It works. These predictive systems can slash delivery times, sure, but they can also cut down on the number of people leaving the service by 15%. This isn't just about speed, it's an entire business model built on getting ahead of your desires, on knowing your next move before you even make it. So, if our brains are a step ahead of us, and now our algorithms are a step ahead of our brains, how do we even start to talk about freedom? All right, let's pull out the philosophical map that people have been drawing for centuries to try and figure this whole mess out. Okay, on one side of this map, you've got determinism. This is the big idea that every single thing that happens is the inevitable result of things that happened before it. It's like one long cosmic chain of falling dominoes, stretching all the way back to the Big Bang. So the incompatibilists look at that chain of dominoes and they say, well, that's that then. No free will. For them, if our actions are just the last domino to fall in a long, long chain, then we couldn't have done anything else. The two ideas, determinism and free will, just can't exist together. They're incompatible. But then you've got the compatibilists, and they say, hold on, maybe we're just defining free will all wrong. They argue that freedom isn't about being some magical being who can break the laws of cause and effect. Instead, it's just about being able to act on your own desires without somebody, say, holding a gun to your head. So here's the real crux of it, the big difference. For the incompatibilist, freedom means you really could have done otherwise. But for the compatibilist, freedom just means you acted based on who you are, even if who you are was shaped by that long chain of dominoes. So which side is winning? Well, what's really fascinating is where the pros land on this. A huge survey of professional philosophers found that almost 60% of them are compatibilists. They seem to have found a way to make peace with our feeling of freedom and the scientific view of the universe. But whether you land on that side or not, the challenge from neuroscience and AI brings us to the biggest, heaviest question of all. If our choices are ultimately cooked up by factors beyond our conscious control, what happens to moral responsibility? You know, there's this core idea in ethics that goes, ought implies can. It basically means it only makes sense to say someone should have done something if it was actually possible for them to do it. And that's the logical conclusion, right? If a person's actions were totally inevitable, if they literally could not have done anything else, then our whole idea of blaming them for bad things or praising them for good things, it kind of starts to crumble. This whole line of thinking completely changes our idea of justice. Instead of it being about punishment, making someone pay for what they did, it becomes about something way more practical, just protecting society. It's a lot like how we handle public health. We quarantine someone with a contagious disease not to punish them for being sick, but to stop the disease from spreading. And this chart just lays out that shift perfectly. On one side, you have our traditional system of justice, which is based on blame and retribution. It absolutely requires free choice to make sense. On the other, you have a totally different model, one focused on rehabilitation and just preventing future harm. And that model, well, it doesn't need free will at all. Some thinkers, like neurobiologist Robert Sapolsky, argue that letting go of this idea of free will could actually make us more humane. I mean, think about it. When we've figured out the biological reasons for something, like epilepsy or dyslexia, we've moved from blaming people to showing compassion and support. The argument is, maybe that could apply to everything we do. And that leaves us with a critical, urgent question for our time. We're building a world run by AI that learns from our behaviors. Behaviors that, as we've seen, might be determined by forces we don't even control. So the real takeaway here is that this ancient philosophical debate, well, it's not academic anymore. We really, really need to think critically about who or what is writing the script for what comes next.